I woke up in a hospital room, no recollection of what had happened, couldn't feel anything from the neck down. I look around, no idea where I am, even who I am.
Who are you?
I total have had 5 brain surgeries within the last 3 years. Not only could I not walk, I could hardly breathe. I'm like, what in the actual fuck? I did not see this happening in my life. Am I gonna just play this sideline character in my story? No, I'm main character energy, and I'm gonna live my life fully with full presence from the moment I woke up. Essentially, paralyzed to me being able to walk again was a week. I live a very aligned life. I move my body. I eat healthy. I do all the things, and it still happened. I decided to walk the hospital halls in a blanket toga because that is what felt more fun for me than a boring old hospital gown. Eventually, I ended up competing in ballroom dance competition. Can't say I have gratitude for brain surgery. I'm grateful to be alive after it. Back and I'm like, what a I was halfway through cancer treatment when I found out I was pregnant.
Who are you?
Well, I know I could easily answer that and say my name is Rachel and I'm a mom. And a bunch of other things, but I think when I am not that, I am just a being inhabiting a body, living this earthly experience, and but outside of the quantum, if we want, I would say I'm Rachel and I'm a woman.
Why do you decide to define yourself as a mom primarily?
And I think I think I could probably answer that differently every single day, but I was reflecting on my identity, and we can identify with so many different things, but the reason I'm choosing that in this moment is because I feel like it's one of the greatest blessings I've been given on this earthly experience.
Yeah, and I think, you're somebody who's had quite an earthly experience, to say the least. A big part of that, obviously, is your son, Julian. And, you and I were just talking, you just finished your book, What the Actual Fuck, and, your life is very much like that. Would you mind just kind of like, in a short version of it, just kind of walk the audience a little bit through, like, I guess, like, what the actual fuck has gone on for you in your life? So just kind of give them a high level summary of the experiences that you've been through.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share. And just, I mean, there's so many places that I could start. But I think overall the book is really just, I think so many times we can look at certain scenarios and experiences and just be like, what in the actual fuck? Like, just how is this, how is this actually happening? But for me, I've experienced quite a few of those, and a lot of it, I would say one of those was when I woke up in a hospital room, no recollection of what had happened. I look around, no idea, where I am, even who I am. I woke up thinking I was a born again baby, and couldn't feel anything from the neck down. And so for me, that was one of my biggest one, the actual fuck moments. And then having to relearn how to walk, learning about what had actually just happened. I had had a near-death seizure in Mexico, and thank God, my mom was there to help save my life, essentially. And then thank God that Julian was fine as well. But I had essentially fallen into a pool, started seizing, and, had never had a seizure before in my life. Didn't even realize that that was something that could happen in my body. No prior episodes of epilepsy or anything. So this was just so out of the blue, so unbelievable. And then, when I started learning about everything that had unfolded, that I was on ventilators for 3 days, that the doctor that I had aspirated on a burrito 3 days prior, and the pulmonologist that went to fishing for the food ended up puncturing my lung, ended up having a collapsed lung, had to, could hardly even breathe when I came out of the coma. So not only could I not walk, I couldn't breathe, could hardly breathe, had a chest tube and just was hooked up to all these monitors. And like, just that was truly, we talk about rock bottom. I'm like, what in the actual fuck? I did not see this happening in my life. But at the end of it all, I am here. I'm alive. I can walk. I can breathe. I can see. It really makes you reflect on all of the things that we otherwise would take for granted. So for me, that was a big one. And yeah.
How many brain surgeries did you have?
Oh my gosh. I total have had 5 brain surgeries. Two that were back to back in January. So 5 within the last 3 years.
That's crazy.
Read the rest of the book to know all the other things in my story.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that really stood out in that story was, and I think even particularly in that moment, what she said is like, of all the things that you've been through, and you had, I think the loss of your father at like 21, and you went through, multiple cancer diagnoses that you overcame, and kind of was like, oh, cool, we're on the other side of this, and then leading to even brain cancer, and then leading to, additional brain work that you had to do, and like, there's multiple of these things, becoming pregnant during the middle of all that with your son. Right. And there's all of these little things that would happen. And yet, something that I think really stood out is that you seem to at least refuse to let that be your defining story, right? To let that become the moment where you're like, okay, cool. Well, I guess this is just like my life now. I have to sit on the sidelines. And each time you were like, I've got to go out and live. And I'm curious for you, like, where do you feel like that, like, resilience or that sense of I'm going to go live my life in spite of this or in the middle of all this? Like, where does that come from for you?
Well, I love that you talk about the theme of resilience, right? Well, it almost for me was like, well, I don't have another option. Like, there is no option B or option C. Like, what am I going to just like wallow in it and sit in it and like, play this like, sideline character in my story? Like, no, I'm main character energy, and I'm gonna live my life fully with full presence. And I think the resilience comes from just it's a muscle that we build. And I think for me, I just really value and continue to value this life that we live. I think for me, I've had my own struggles with like mental health and finding the light, and even among these dark days, because a lot of those days feel really dark. And even some of the meds that they had me on to prevent seizures, like some of these anti-seizure meds, some of the side effects are depression. And like I experienced that in apathy, where like every day just felt kind of gray and like it just neutral, and I just didn't feel much of anything. And I think when some of these experiences would happen, it was just I would find that joy somewhere kind of in the filing cabinet of I think about, we think about the movie Inside Out, right? And I'm like, well, joy is somehow always there. Like, she's always with me, and sometimes she takes a nap, or she needs to rest, but she's always with me, and I'm always able to find joy in some of these little moments of gratitude. Like a lot of times when I look back at some of these situations, and I always look at it, I'm still alive, so I might as well continue living. And, what are some of those things that really do bring me joy? So, like, for me, it's time with my son, like watching him grow, watching him play through his lens, and seeing the world through his lens. And also, like, time with friends, traveling, and what other things really light me up from the inside out. And so it's time outside. And I think a lot of times we don't do the things that we know will help us. So even movement and meditation and those things really do help me. But I think I really had to reconnect with myself and reconnect with some of those things that light me up so that I could actually continue onwards. And so a lot of times when some of these things would happen, I wouldn't even, and you and I have maybe talked about this before, but I never really took a beat to process some of the events. And so I would just almost like go from, say, brain surgery, or go from these life-threatening events, and like, okay, well, like, back to work I go, back to momming I go, back to this, and just life continues lifing without even taking a beat. And I've realized it's really important for me to actually sit and process and reconnect with those little joys, and maybe take a beat, take a break, not actually, go to all the meetings, maybe reschedule some things. I think we make a lot of our work super significant that we don't even take a beat to actually process life. And so I think those are really important things to really sit with, and just actually recognize what has happened and not just skip over it.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes me think about something you talk about, which are the idea of like glimmers, like, right? You kind of talk about them as like the opposite of triggers, these things that like are in your environment and in your life that like kind of bring those little sparks of joy, of hope, of just forgetting the chaos kind of around you and creating that sense of inner peace and calm. I think, some of the things that I'm thinking about as you're talking about is like, you do go into a lot of like big events, like creating your birthday party, in the midst of your cancer diagnosis, and like all of these different things that are going on for you. And like at the same time, there's also like even just during the treatments, like wearing a spacesuit into some of the treatments, or whatever it is, or the little jokes that your friends are making, or the shirts that you're wearing, right? You constantly found like all of these little nuggets to whatever situation you were in, bringing that little bit of a spark of joy to yourself, but I imagine also to the other people around you. Was that something that you had to like intentionally cultivate, or was that something that you found was like fairly like natural for you?
Well, I love that you bring those things up, because it does feel like it's just something that's innate in me. Is it's something natural, is like bringing light to otherwise dark situations. And like I cope with laughter, and I think laughter for me is super important. Like if I can't laugh about this, like, maybe it's a coping mechanism, but it's something that works for me. And I laugh a lot. And I think that when it came to the spacesuit and making jokes in the infusion centers, and like for me, that was always something that at least made me feel better, made other people around me feel better. Like, I think there was one moment where somebody came around the curtain, and they're like, knock, knock. And I'm like, who's there? And so just trying to make light of it was always, it's intentional. Like, I think I have to pause and say, well, no, obviously, like I made the intention to, that's how that I was going to deal with it. But yeah, like, for me, life shouldn't be taken so seriously all the time. Like, there's so much going out, and there's so much dark in our world, that it's so important to return and find that light and lightness over and over and over again. And I think that takes real intentionality to find positivity and light. And I'm not saying that in this like weird, like just like love and light everything kind of way. It's just about the like finding joy, finding light. And that's something that is both intentional, but also I would say comes naturally to me, that I want to just be able to laugh about certain things. Like even sometimes when I was talking about the cancer cells that traveled up to the brain, I'm like, man, I referred to them as like almost like homeless, like these like little hobos that traveled up from they like traveled up. They like started off in my neck, and then their little colony got disturbed, so they like decided to travel up to my brain. They're like, all right, let's wrap it up. Brain seems like the better place to go. So I don't know. It's something like, yeah, laughing and making things funny, and like I sometimes just like I love laughing. It's like one of the most fun things that we can do is laugh.
Yeah. I'm curious, what impact do you think that attitude and mindset like had on your healing journey as a whole?
Gosh, I think it's so healing to like, I think, be able to regulate your nervous system, but I think to laugh is so healing and nurturing. And I think that's like one of my favorite things about, being out with friends is that like we just laugh a lot. And so I think for me, I always just, when I talk about in my book, like I was sick of my hospital gown. So I like took it off. Well, I had originally asked my mom to bring me pajamas and she didn't for whatever reason. And so I took off my hospital gown, and me and my friends, they made me a toga out of blankets. And that was what I decided to parade around in after my first brain surgery. And like my nurse, I wanted, that you're encouraged to walk after brain surgery, like literally the next, or even like that night, the next day, you're always encouraged, like, go walk so your muscles don't atrophy. But it's amazing what the brain as an organ is just so wild. But yeah, so I was encouraged to walk, and I decided to walk the hospital halls in a blanket toga because that is what felt more fun for me than a just boring old hospital gown.
Yeah. Well, and I think what's amazing too is like even as I'm watching you recall these experiences, like a lot of people could be talking about these things with tons of fear or anxiety and stuff, and like even when you're talking about being in the hospital, right, you're talking about it and your eyes are lighting up and you're almost looking back at these experiences as these fun, like joyful memories versus these really tragic events. And I'm sure there's like tragedy mixed in with all of it, but I'm curious for you, like is that even something that you've noticed up until now, that like do you look back at that period of your life with a sense of frustration and anger? Do you look back at it with joy? Like how do you see those moments at this point in your life?
I look back at it and I'm like, what a shit show.
Sure.
Like what a just hot mess show that was. So, and that's why I think I smile or I laugh about it. Like, I'm like, I think we always say, like, we've all gone through all of our life's toughest battles, and, we got through them. But even that, I look back at the first brain surgery, then, like, after the, like, near-death experience, like, what an absolute show. And so it's not necessarily that I look back on those memories with like joy. I think I look back at it like just that it was a crazy, crazy time in my life. And even some of the more recent events, like, because the book I finished I released it about a year ago, or I finished it about a year ago, and then released it a few months after that. And, even the events that have followed since then that will probably make it into book number 2, is really just like these like what in the actual fuck moments that I don't necessarily say like I have gratitude for that. Like I can't say I have gratitude for brain surgery. I'm grateful to be alive after it. And I'm grateful to have all of my vital functions intact. And I've suffered some minor brain deficits. I've lost a little bit of my vision, but I still can drive. I still I account for the visual deficits. And so the point is not that I can look back on those. I mean, there's those little glimmers in those moments, like the fact that I have such amazing support around me, that I am so incredibly loved, that I always had people there for me on the other side of it all. That so all of those things are kind of what keep me going. But when I say like, and at the same time, I had choice in all of these things, right? Like there were times where I had, the second and third brain surgeries scheduled, and I postponed them. And I still sometimes look back on, well, what if I chose to have the third surgery way before I actually had it. I had basically the third brain surgery scheduled. I had postponed it twice before then. I had a brain bleed, and I had to. It was an emergency surgery at that point. And, I still look back and say, well, what if I chose something different? And I think we have to really think about some of those life choices that, like, those aren't necessarily, we can't look at things with regret. We can't look at things with like, well, what if I chose differently? We have to look at it, well, the past has already happened. What are you going to choose now? And how are you going to maybe even, like, how have you learned from that experience? So I know that's kind of different than the question you had originally asked about, like, the looking back on these memories with like joy. It's really just for me about, well, how am I actually looking back on these memories?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I hear in that is, not simply, and I think this is like really a profound part of your book, right? But I think a lot of what you hear in a lot of self-help or spiritual teachings is like to be grateful for all of the things that have ever happened, and kind of this like, toxic positivity in a sense. And you really push back, I think, really well on that idea within your book as a whole. And even, one of the ideas that came up that I wanted to ask you about was like around even this idea of, because you come from a very like spiritual background. You're going to Tulum, and you're going to Bali, and going to Miami on these different adventures and stuff, right? And one of the things that can be a common belief system in that space is like, oh, if you're just like spiritually aligned, if you're living the life that you're meant to, like, kind of like nothing bad will ever happen to you, right? Like your cancer will be cured, you'll do all these different things. And I think one of the things that I'm curious about and that you seem to deal with was like, can you talk about, I'm going to say almost like some of the shame that can kind of come up of that belief system, if you will, right? It's like, because now I have cancer, so what should I be doing wrong? What's wrong with me, or what am I not doing, or where am I not following the path correctly that God or whatever you believe in is like set for me, or whatnot? Can you just like, I guess, share a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. And so I think that was such a important piece that I wanted to really highlight in my book, is that just because something like cancer or a chronic illness happens to somebody, doesn't mean that they did anything wrong. that they weren't spiritually aligned enough, or that they weren't eating healthy enough, or that they weren't physically fit enough. Like all these, like that you didn't do anything wrong. I think sometimes some of these doctors or, even people in the functional health space say, well, like, oh, if you eat an alkaline diet, you will never create an environment in your body for cancer to exist. And like, oh, that's why I will never have cancer. Or da, 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 da. So I think so many times in social media, we're bombarded with information that like, oh, if you just do these things, you will never have cancer or a chronic illness or this, or that. And just because you didn't, you didn't fail. And that was the big thing, that it's like, just because that this thing happened, you didn't somehow fail at life. You didn't, you didn't disappoint God or the universe, and like now you're being punished. I think a lot of times some things are just placed in our path, and we have to deal with them. And that's kind of the point of it. And, even since then, I still really believe that to be true, because I really do feel like I live a very aligned life. I move my body, I eat healthy, I do all the things, and yet, this still happened. I received a cancer diagnosis. I still had to have brain surgery. And so I could have sat there and said, well, I will just meditate, and I will just, eat all my omegas and supplements and like hope for the best. But no, I believe that God and universe, works through all of these different modalities and things. Like I think that God is in everything, that God is in the hands of the brain surgeon and the doctors, and like we need all of it. And I think it's really important to really differentiate that, because so many times people in the spiritual community will talk poorly about medicine, Eastern, Western medicine, or they say, just follow Eastern, don't go Western, whatever it is. So it is important to live a holistic lifestyle. And also, if you need a doctor, you need a doctor. That it's not like you somehow failed this life test, that this is now a new test that you have to get through. It's just, we never know what is placed in our path. Everyone is facing a certain problem or issue. I saw this one thing on the internet, like saying like, oh, if somebody were to come up to you the other, and you blink, or say like somebody had a magic wand and said, hey, you can either deal with like your life's problems, or we wave a magic wand and you will be given somebody else's problems. Would you take that risk? And how much does that actually put into perspective your own problems? And would you trade yours for somebody you don't know? You might get some random Joe Schmo that just goes through life every day and it's fine, or you might be given something else. And so would you take that risk? Or the other scenario, right, where I talk about it, and we've heard it all before, is, the guy on the cliff, right? And that's like asking God there's a flood, and like he's asking God to save him. And, a boat comes to this guy and he's like, hey, come on my boat, there's a flood. You should get off the cliff. He's like, no, God will come save me. And then a helicopter comes by, and the guy again says, come, the water is getting higher and higher, like, come get off that cliff, come into my helicopter. And it's like, no worries, like, God will come save me. And then obviously the flood washes over, and like the guy dies, and he's like greeted by God, and he's like, well, God, I prayed to you every single day, like, why didn't you come save me? And he's like, I sent you a boat, I sent you a helicopter, what else did you want from me? So it's really about using all of the tools, not just negating one because we think it's bad or negative, or like it's somehow lesser than. Like, no, that is God. And then whatever we have, we live in such an interesting time with technology being what it is and the medical space being what it is, that we have to use all of the tools to our advantage and do what's right for you.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that really speaks to, like, I think another theme that comes up a lot in your book, which is, I would say, like, the power of choice, and also, like, following your particular intuition. I've interviewed a different person before who kind of a different path, but he was, diagnosed as, or had basically born with his stomach outside of him. And from a young age, he chose to go the route of, like, he had all this medical advice, and he was like, I really feel like this path of, homeopathy is, like, the right one for him. And, he was supposed to die at, like, 10 years old, and now he's 50 something with, has kids and all these other things. And that was, like, the path that he chose, and it worked out for him. And yet also, I think one of the things that people can often hear with that, right, is like, oh, like, homeopathy is the right path. Where I think even, like, an example like yours, like, where you went through the medical route, but you also did your energy healings. You also found all these other things, and you really found a way to listen to your intuition and follow your particular path. I'm curious, like, what was that like to navigate that? And, like, what did you do to actually, like, I would say, listen to your intuition to make those choices? And what was it like to try to find your intuition even through all of that chaos?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of times we don't know how to differentiate what is our intuition versus what is our mind, or ego, or maybe it's, some of our saboteurs trying to keep us safe. So how do we really differentiate that intuition? It a lot of times comes in as a whisper. It never screams at us, or hardly ever does. But how do we actually figure out what our intuition means? And for me, a lot of times we can differentiate that as, like, through the body. What is the body actually trying to say? So, if we're looking at, say, an event, for example, and something in our body feels like there's a contraction, or, like, our gut is, like, kind of like, oh, like, there's, like, a heaviness in our gut. That is also, it's a gut reaction saying, like, hey, maybe second guess it. Maybe, consider not going, or, tune into that. And when something feels really light in our body, a lot of times that is recognizing the actual intuition that, say, again, an event, or even, say, a conversation with a friend. Say there's like a heaviness that you might be feeling when you're having a conversation, or maybe it's not a friend, but you just feel a heaviness with this interaction. Listen to that. And same thing. So I can even bring up the example of relationship or partnership. Maybe you're starting to feel like this heaviness or this anxious feeling in your body. You have to really listen to that and, think about, are we overthinking something, or is there something that we're aware of? And, versus, like, do you feel light? Do you feel safe? Do you feel secure in your body? Listen to that. So that's kind of the voice that I tend to listen to when, like, navigating, whether it, going out, or, relationship, friendship, whatever that might look like. And so it's like, what is that feeling in our body? How do we actually cultivate or listen to it? The way that I hear it a lot of times is I'll sit in meditation. And some people know I read Akashic records as well. So sometimes I can tune into and people that are familiar with the Akashic records, it's the library of our soul's journey. So a lot of times I can, open the records and see, okay, what will this actual choice create for me? But for those that are a little bit more, beginner level to just training their intuition, how do we actually listen to it? How do we know what it is? I would just recommend, like, go for a walk and, like, ask yourself these questions. Sit in meditation and ask yourself, what's coming up? Really, where are the ways to quiet the mind? What are some of those ways to actually listen to some of those whispers and some of those pings and from the universe? So yeah, connecting with nature is a great way to do that as well. And just, I think the biggest one really is tuning into the body and how does the body respond to a certain experience or
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love what you said about getting into the body, and I think it's something I think both men and women and all genders can really struggle with. I think especially in our day and age with, where we spend so much time on screens and the realm of the mind and all these things. Do you have favorite ways of getting back in touch with your own body?
Yeah, so for me, it's through meditation, through sound. So we've been listening to music, going to a concert. I feel like concerts are so healing. And I know you could probably relate to that too, because I know you like to go out to festivals and concerts, but that is just like such a fun way to like welcome yourself home again. I know that I went to a concert not too long ago, and like Chicago really likes to freeze in the winter. And then it just felt like this, like not only defrosting of Chicago, but like defrosting of our own like somatics in our bodies. And it just felt so good to just dance. And so finding what that looks like for you. So for me, it's, yoga, Pilates, dancing. These are all ways that I really get into the body. And, when it comes to getting out of the mind, yeah, I think dancing is the best way to like shut the mind off, because you're so just, and that can be any, like just not, I'm not even talking about structured dancing. I mean, in my book, I talk about ballroom dancing, but which I literally can't think about anything else besides what I'm supposed to be doing with my arms and my legs and my body. But even unstructured dancing, I'm just like, here I am. I'm here.
Yeah. Love it. I think one thing I wanted to kind of zoom back to that I think wasn't talked about too much in your book, but was kind of your relationship with your father. So I know that, your parents divorced when I think you were about 5 years old, and you talk about your father being an alcoholic, and I think he passed away around the time you were like 21. Can you talk about like what your relationship with your father was like and the way that impacted you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how well annotated and the notes you got on me, Cameron. I really appreciate it. But yeah, I think it was not an easy relationship for sure. I don't necessarily feel like I want to say there was a lot of things that he did well, that he was a good dad. When I was growing up, we did get to spend time together. He'd bring me to work, and I feel like he really helped me develop my love for math. I don't know if I necessarily would have had that if it wasn't for him. And the same thing with like playing. We bonded over playing pool together. But I think the relationship in general, definitely, it was strained because of his addiction. At that, he, I don't, and that like it's demonic in a way. Like I before we hopped on, we said like nothing's off limits. So I was like, and I'm like, do I say it? And I'm like, no, I do believe that like in alcohol and when it comes to addiction, I think it's demons that kind of hold that power over somebody. And so I think he wasn't able to like fight off his demons to really make him into the person that he was. And he was super, super smart. And so, yeah, like, and I think it is even more common, like fighting off our demons or like whatever that looks like. And like, I think addiction is a lot of tied to that. And so I think for the way that I formed relationships, particularly with men, it was like a lack of trust in them, or that, that not a matter of that they would leave, but it's like not, it was like almost like the belief is that they not only will they leave, but it's a matter of when. And so I think when, and like, I think my cycle my toxic trait, I guess you could say, is that like I perpetuate this belief, or like I meet somebody, things are going great, say in the beginning, and then like, you know, things maybe like either like I can say I self-sabotage, or maybe it's like, you know, it's not the right person, it's not the right fit. Sometimes I try to like hold on to something that no longer serves. And that's what I think is more commonly, is that I maybe stay longer than I should. I think that's kind of because I'm trying to still hold on to something. And I think that's, you know, tied to the relationship that I had with my dad, is that like I'm still in a way like I was trying to always like hold on to something that maybe wasn't there. I was trying to rebuild something that wasn't there, or but at the end of the day, like, yes, the relationship that I had with him, like I'm super at the end of the day grateful for, but I think there's issues of abandonment, of course, that, you know, he did leave this earthly planet when I was still super young. And I would say young, but like, you know, 21 still feels very young. You know, there's a lot of things in my 20s that I think I didn't necessarily like date. Everything I think is the way that's supposed to be. But I don't think I dated like the people that were probably in like weren't like the healthiest dynamics or the healthiest types of relationships. So I think we live and we learn.
Yeah. When he actually like passed away, what was like the feeling in your body when that happened?
Oh my gosh, I remember that day like it was like it's so in my memory. Like I was supposed to go out and visit him the following week in April. His birthday was in April. I was going to go out for his birthday. And his wife / my stepmom calls me the week before saying, I think you need to come. And I was like, well, I'll be there in a week. Like, you know, what could possibly happen in a week? She's like, well, he's in the hospital right now. Like, I think you should maybe change your flight to come now. And like he had been in and out of the hospital. He had just moved to Scottsdale, Arizona, and like he lived in Chicago his whole life. But then he was like, I'm over these winters, and like I want something different. So within like the last 3-4 months of his life, he spent in Arizona. And so, yeah, I was kind of at this point used to like, oh, he's in the hospital, he's home. Like maybe this is just one of those. This is one of those cases. I'll be there soon. And then she calls me like, okay, your dad has passed. And I was working at a restaurant called Lulu Bells in Chicago and Lakeview. And I get the phone call, and I go up to my manager, my boss at the time, and I'm like, I think I need to go home. My dad just died. It was shock. It was purely like shock. I'm like, I couldn't believe it that like, oh, my dad is actually like no longer here. Like he didn't just like bounce back from and he passed from cancer, lymphoma. So I was like, okay, this is shocking. And I came home, and my best friend was home, and and I was like, she's like, what do you need? Like, and I had no idea what I needed in that moment. I think I was shocked for a long time. And I don't think it fully hit me until probably 2 years later that like, oh, she's actually gone. I remember like, I basically sent my grief into the future 2 years. I cried when he died and at the funeral and at his memorial, but I didn't fully process it until like literally 2 years later, where I was just like, oh my gosh, he's actually gone. And that's when I grieved, and that's when I cried, and that's when I had a full-on like body breakdown, emotional release. And so, but I remember the day that he passed, actually like it was a beautiful day. And like I went, my best friend and I went to Molly's Cupcakes. she was like, what do you want to do? I'm like, I don't know what, like, we were just trying to think of like, what can make me feel better right now? Like, what would actually, again, like bring me joy? And so we're like, okay, let's start with cupcakes. And then we lived in Lincoln Park, and it was like far from the zoo. So we like just like walked arm in arm, hand in hand. Like she just like had her arm around me. I had my arm around her. We looked like probably the cutest lesbian couple possibly. And like we just walked around Lincoln Park Zoo looking at the animals. We walked to the lakefront, sat at the lakefront for a little bit, and eventually went home. But it was a beautiful day. I looked back at that day with like just sheer gratitude, and just gratitude for her, that she was home. And like that was something that really like that sits like so close, near and dear to my heart, of just like that day.
When you grieved like your father's loss, like, or the loss of your father, I should say, like two years later, like what was it that you found yourself grieving the most?
I think his physical presence, his physical being, that like, oh, I no longer have a dad that's on this planet. And I feel like for a while I could almost like feel him, like feel his presence around me, as far as like in the spiritual. I could feel like his energy around me. And I would channel it a lot of times when I would be playing pool, like out at the bars and out in public. I'd always be like, hey, like almost like asking for his like support and guidance, like let me show these guys off, like like let me, like guys would a lot of times be like super surprised by like my pool shark skills, and I'd be like, wait, this girl can like actually play. And so so a lot of times I'd be like looking at this like almost like this trick shot, or like something that would be like a bounce off a wall or whatever. And so I almost like would like channel him, and then suddenly like 2 years later, and it was his like the anniversary of his passing, where I almost like I couldn't feel him anymore. And like, and still I sometimes wonder if like when these, when people pass, how long can we actually still feel them for? Are they always with us? Do they incarnate into a new body? Can we still feel them even when they incarnate into a new body? And so I sometimes wonder if that's what was happening, is that maybe his soul was incarnating somewhere else, but then at the same time I still can like I still feel like he is always with me in a way, if that makes sense. But I wonder if that's kind of what had happened. Maybe he chose a new body.
Yeah. Was there anything that you like didn't get to say to your dad that you wanted to?
So I had this interesting ceremony where we did like this like release, not like planned or anything like that, but just like a ceremony of like me in a way like channeling him. And like I think that for us it was I always wanted him to know that like regardless of what had ever happened between us, that like no matter what, like I always love him. I always continue to love him. I don't know if there's anything that was unsaid, and I sometimes wish that it was still present for him to see like his grandson, but I think for me personally, I don't necessarily have any sort of regrets, or that like I didn't say anything. I wish he could see the life that I'm living right now. And a lot of times I still do, ask my grandma, my dad, like for support in the things that I deal with and the things that I go through. Like I do still feel like they are my angels and my guides, that I always do feel like I am, in everything that I've gone through, supported by angels and guides.
Beautiful. I think that's a great kind of pivot into the birth of your son, Julian, who, that's happening for you in the mix of, I think, the kind of ending of cancer treatment and some of these other things that are going on. Can you just walk us through what was that like for you in that moment when you found out you were pregnant?
Oh my gosh.
Wild, crazy, unexpected. My God, I was halfway through cancer treatment when I found out I was pregnant. I was halfway through immunotherapy where I was like going for monthly infusions. I still had maybe like 6 or 7 more rounds left to go, but I was over it. I was done. I didn't want to do it anymore. That was still when I was in my like, let me sing Kumbaya and hope for the best and I can meditate this cancer away. I don't think that's not true. I think a lot, we talk about Joe Dispenza and things like that. People, we kind of touched on it before, but still I was actually in the hospital for like a halfway point checkpoint CT scan. That was one of those moments where there was an intuition thing. There was a ping that I had in my body that told me like, maybe it was so crazy to me. I didn't even think at that point that I was fertile. I was always having irregular cycles, and my cycle would come anywhere between 35 to 45 days. And so I just was like, I thought I was going to be one of those people that got married and like would have to try. Just because I was just like, I don't think I'm fertile. And then I get to the hospital. I have they put like a hep lock in to get the IV started for contrast. They did not put obviously any sort of contrast in my body yet, but I was getting prepped for the CT, and they do administer a contrast once you're already like in the machine or like after like halfway through the CT scan, but no contrast yet, just an IV hep lock. They asked me if I had filled out a pregnancy questionnaire, and I was literally looking at the machine, like straight in the face, like I was ready to go into it. And then I was like, oh, like, did you fill out this? I'm like, what pregnancy questionnaire? Like, no, I didn't fill anything out. And I'm filling it out, like, could you be pregnant? I even filled out like, no. And then like, oh, when was the date of your last cycle? And I'm like, oh, well, it was like 40 days ago. So then I hand back this like piece of paper to this tech, and he's like holding it, like trying to take it out of my hands, and I'm like still like not letting go. And I'm like, can I just take a test just in case? And there was like never a time I feel like where I had like asked for a test, or like I think I had maybe taken like one pee in a cup test prior to starting immunotherapy, but they weren't like a regular thing that was administered then.
Right.
Yeah. So then they can't even find an actual pregnancy test. Like I had to pee into like a big like styrofoam cup, and so awkwardly position it and like give it to them, and they like basically take like my sample and put it into a test. And I at this point I'm like just like waiting for the like no like negative test. Like I'm just like that I have literally like I'm like, okay, like I'm just doing this to like rule it out, but something in me told me like ask for a test. So I'm just like, let me listen to that, let me follow that. And so the nurse comes back after what feels like an eternity. Like I don't know if she was just looking at this test confused, like, oh, like we were not expecting, but she comes back and she's like, I'm gonna try again. And I'm like, well, like what happened the first time? And she's like, well, positive. And I'm like, oh. And like earlier that day I was like at like a Marshall's, like trying on clothes, and I was like puffing out and like at this point you're like, I'm like barely pregnant, I'm like 5-6 weeks pregnant, so there's nothing you can even be showing, but I'm like puffing out my belly and like sucking it back in and puffing it out and sucking it in. I'm like, nah, you're just crazy. Like, what are you doing? Like, just leave. And so then the nurse does a second test. And at this point, I hop out of my seat. I go to like her little testing station, and I'm like looking at this test, and it's like, no, there's 2 bright pink lines. And I'm like, this is not even a faint line. Like there's 2 lines. And so I Okay, so we do a second test. Second test is positive. Then she's like, I'm gonna call my supervisor over. As though this is like some sort of like rocket science. Like, this like, what is your supervisor gonna do differently? We're taking one little pipette into a cup and putting it into a test. Like, I'm looking at the instructions, like flipping them around, like maybe I missed something. Like, is there a such thing as a false positive? Like, we look at the, thinking about the movie Juno, like she's like trying to like move it, and it's like this, like just like it's not an etch a sketch. Like it's positive. I'm pregnant, and so it was such a it was just one of those like beyond moments of just I was like shocked. It was February. It was cold outside, so I'm like essentially like I'm telling this nurse essentially my whole life story. I'm not married. I had this fling essentially in Mexico. Not saying that it wasn't out of like love. Like I definitely like had love for this, for baby daddy. But I was just like, I thought I would like have a house and like married and, just like, but at the end of the day, I don't do anything traditional. So it only made sense that this is how this would happen. So, I go and I get in my car and I go to I call baby daddy, Nathan. And, I, like, hey, like, this is what happened. Like, I just got a, positive test. And so he's like, are you driving? I'm like, yes, I am. And you could hear it. I'm like kind of shaking in my voice. And so I'm like, he's like, can you pull over? I'm like, I see a CVS. I'm going to grab a couple more tests. And so I grab a couple more tests. I take those home. I obviously like hang up the phone with him. I'm like starting to calm down. And my mom's asking me like, how did your CT scan go? And I was like, well, like I didn't have it done. And so, I at this point, like I bought the clear blue that just, there's no more pink lines involved. That just says, the results just say pregnant or not pregnant. And I pee on that one. It says pregnant. Well, in my chart, it'll still say that, patient had positive pregnancy test ×5. So, like, let me just, and then, because obviously I had that, like, a blood test confirm it as well. But, yeah, it was honestly magical. Like, it was also another one of those, like, what in the actual fuck moments where I was just like, I remember calling my best friend and she's like, also on the phone, like, Rachel, what the fuck? Like, here's my life. Nothing is usual or just how it does. It never follows just like a one path. Like I'm always, I think, in some sort of jungle that, the park rangers have not cleared out a hiking path. And I'm just constantly looking at it like, okay, I think this is the path.
And what? Because obviously you're in the middle of, we're kind of near the end of your cancer treatment at that point. And, definitely an option, I guess, at that point would have been to terminate the pregnancy. Like, why did you choose to go with the pregnancy and choose that route instead?
Yeah, well, I think that's a really valid question because, for me, I looked at it from like a sign from God, universe, that like, okay, I went through the treatment. And even when I checked with my oncologist, he's like, I feel like we got the reaction and response from your body that it's enough for like your 6 or 7 rounds that you've had. Because I had already been like really fatigued and like breaking out in rashes and like just having all these side effects. That like, okay, we got the response we needed from your body, so we can stop the treatment. But for me, it was like a sign from the universe that like, this is what's meant for you. This is, and like I had always dreamed of, for me, like some people aren't sure whether they want to be a parent or not. I dreamed of being a mom. I was something that I always wanted. And so at that point I was 30 years old. And I just trusted. I trusted that that I meant to have, Julian. And so, yeah, obviously I stopped cancer treatment. I had such a honestly great pregnancy. I loved being pregnant. I felt good. I had my bouts of like nausea or like tiredness, and but overall, I traveled. I went to Costa Rica. I literally was traveling once a month while I was pregnant. I'm like, let me just get all of my let me just like adventure and like have so much fun with this pregnancy. I mean, I had no idea what it was going to look like. I still continue to travel even with Julian. I think life does not stop once you become a mom or a parent. And so for me, I was like, I knew that this was something that was meant for me. And so I decided, I was like, this is how life is supposed to unfold. And I trusted that was the path. But yeah, I mean, we went to Electric Forest together, or we met up there. When I was, I can't remember. I think I was like 6 or 7 months pregnant at Electric Forest.
Yeah, you're pretty far along at that point because you had your little baby sign.
I had a little baby bump. Yeah, I had a bump. So yeah, I had so much fun with it, and then continue to travel and have fun. I think that's the point.
Yeah. What was the impact of like choice of like going to, you end up you choose to have the child. I guess I'm curious, like what's the impact that having Julian in your life has made on you, I guess from that point on and then through the rest of, what continues to be quite an epic journey.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I think a lot of times he's my little like built-in bestie. Like I love watching the world through his eyes, right? I think I said that before, but I view it like parenthood as just like such an interesting journey. Like you're kind of like guiding them, essentially like they need you for so long, but you're essentially their guide for them to no longer like to be more independent. So this like childhood time is so precious for them to be with you. And so a lot of my life right now feels like I show up in a way like he in a big way is like my North Star and like my guiding light for like a lot of things that I do. Like I want to show him the beauty of the world, whether he might remember at this point, maybe he might not, but just being able to explore and adventure and see nature. And like I love that he is starting to love nature and hiking the way that I love nature and hiking, and like I think we've been gifted this beautiful planet to be explored. And so the more that I can spend with Julian exploring it, I think the better. And a lot of the work that I do, I've set up in a way that it's a lifestyle business, right? Like my life does not revolve around work. I enjoy the work that I do, and it has its moments. I have to find the motivation to really like create and cultivate what I want to within it. And I've been in the entrepreneurial space for over 8 years now, which is wild. But yeah, I think I've created a business that allows me to have the lifestyle that we get to just have the fun and explore. And it's not always easy to do it that way, but yeah, for me, I love spending time with him. I love like nurturing and watering his interests. And like right now he's in his farm animal era. So we try to visit, we would go visit a farm at least once a week. Or at least we love seeing animals. So I love that he wants to take care of animals. So like maybe somebody's joking, he's like, it looks like you probably need to buy a goat. And I'm like, I think I need to buy a farm. So, but it's fun. I love the way that like the era and this part of life that we're in right now is Obviously, a lot of my life right now still is like health related and making sure that I'm like taking care of my health. But it's not my identity, and it doesn't dictate the way that I live my life. I think so many times we can get caught up in, and I think it's like, yeah, just being super grateful for my health and, not like letting down like, a setback or a diagnosis hold me back from living.
Yeah. No, I think that's definitely like a through line. I think through your entire, journey is your ability to have these what in the actual moments and, continue to live like through these sparks of joy. I kind of wanted to almost like zoom back into that opening topic that you talked about with the, the brain seizure. And at that point, like you've had Julian already at that point, and I'm curious, like, what was that like to to wake up with not feeling nothing from the wake down, but also to know that you have this child now who is like relying on you?
Oh my God, it was insane. I mean, I had to really recognize and see. Well, I think firstly it was coming to terms with, like, am I paralyzed? Like asking that question out loud, and then like I remember asking the doctor and being like, "Is like, will I be able to walk again?" That was like one of the first questions, and he's like, "Well, like you should, hopefully." And like, hopefully, like, it's not exactly.
Yeah.
And it's, well, we just like pumped you up with like some like steroids, so like hopefully. And so, well, I was like, let me hang on to that. I'll hold on to hopefully, and like I will walk again. I will absolutely get up out of this bed, because also like a little tiny baby needs me. He needs his mommy fully functioning, and at that point he was like 6 or 7 months old. Didn't wait. I mean, he wait like, and so I'm like, I need to be able to hold him and carry him. And I remember when I had just like woken up, him being like placed into like my lap, and that was just like everything I needed in that moment, was just like just to hold my child, and like just know that I am here, that he has his mommy, and like that was just such a beautiful and profound feeling. But it was just such a wild time, because I mean, and I think looking back on it, I did learn how to walk really fast, because I think I knew I needed to. In the grand scheme of things, from the moment I woke up essentially paralyzed to me being able to walk again was a week. Like I remember I was airlifted from Mexico to the States, and I was right away checked into like the neuro ICU, and they gave me a walker to start shuffling. And like I started shuffling. I still then was moved up to the neuro floor. I mean, it had a fall risk alarm on my bed. I felt like, it's like I was 31. I'm 34 now. Like, I associate fall risk with like a 80-something-year-old, not a 30-something. So,
Yeah.
that was like a very like feeling of like humility. And so I just, but at the same time, I was like, you know what? It doesn't matter. I'm going to keep on keeping on, and just, I'm going to keep getting stronger every single day. And so, yeah, within like after 2 weeks, no walker, no nothing, was already in PT, could walk all the way like up and down the hall, up and down stairs. It's still, I mean, my legs were still definitely very heavy and weak. But just, I mean, I was walking again. And that's like, that was huge. That was everything. So, and I think a big part of that was like being strong, not only for myself, but like to be the best and strongest mom I could be for Julian.
Yeah. And then I think one of the coolest things that I found is like, again, through all of these things, you barely are basically getting your body to walk and move, and you're kind of out of the hospital, and you decide to sign up for dance lessons. Can you walk us through, I guess, like what was like in your decision at that point, and like what did, I guess, doing ballroom dancing give you?
Oh my gosh. I'm still dancing to this day. And it gave me just a feeling of normalcy. Like I was doing, so the first time I'd had a hobby in many, many years. And like this was something just like purely for me, not for, again, like I feel like PT was just like, okay, let me be like more functional at home. Same thing with like the pulmonary rehab program that I had done for my breathing. But dancing was something that was just for me. And I knew I know I wanted to help with my balance. I wanted to help with my mental state. I wanted to help me just have fun with it too. And so I remember walking into, and I feel like, and it helps with confidence too. It helps with so many different things. And, my teacher definitely makes it. And he's hilarious. He's funny, and we have fun in our lessons. And so, I think it was definitely just a combination of like, I had no idea what I was signing up for. I just knew that I wanted to like move my body in this way. And like, I feel like ballroom dance is so pretty. I always grew up watching Dancing with the Stars and like So You Think You Can Dance. I thought it was like, I love dancing. So this was kind of like, oh, this is like 10 minutes away from my house. And even in that time, I wasn't driving yet. I'm this like 30 something, and my mom is driving me to these lessons, and he's like, and he never really asked questions, but he kind of was like, and it was like sometimes even like one of those things. I'm like, Mom, can you drop me off around the corner and I'll walk in? I'm like, I don't want to be seen. And like looking back on it, I think it's so funny. I'm like, oh, I don't want to be seen that like my mom's driving me, or like my mom's dropping me off. And I'm like, but like also what a gift it was, that what a gift it continues to be, that like my mom and I have such a close and amazing relationship that like she's like, yeah, sure, like I'll drive you to ballroom dancing, and I'll pick you up and I'll drop you off. But it's like I was healing in that time. I couldn't drive yet, and like, and it's okay. Like, and so, but I remember he's like, why? Like he never really asked me questions, but he knows about my history now, but he never treated me any different. Like he still gave me a hard time when I wasn't getting when I was like moving my feet in a funny way. Like he called me Bambi on ice. I felt sometimes like super uncoordinated, but I'm like, I'm gonna keep showing up. I'm like keep on practicing and doing this, and eventually I ended up competing my first and only ballroom dance competition. We'll see if any others are in the future, but I had a great time.
What was that like for you to? Yeah, what was it like for you to go from, again, kind of literally not being able to walk to actually like competing in a dance competition? I think you got like second place too at it, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I came in second, and it feels surreal. It really feels like and like I think both me and my dance instructor were both emotional about it, because it's like you literally couldn't walk a year ago, and now I'm competing in like one of the most like places where you have to be super coordinated, and you have to get your feet right, your arms right, and like there's so many things that are happening all at once when you're on the dance floor, and you're dancing around like other couples and other people, and it was like such a surreal feeling to like have like not only have competed, but like to have like beat people, to beat someone. So it feels like it was just such a magical experience, something that I don't take lightly, and it was just definitely one of those moments where I look back on it and like, wow, I did that. That's where I'm like, magic is so real, and like life is so beautiful and precious, that like to go from like literally can't feel anything now. Like I can't, from not being able to walk to like dancing on the dance floor and continuing to dance and continuing to like use my body in this amazing way. It's just beautiful to see and hear like what our bodies are capable of. So yeah, it's truly such a gratifying experience to have gone through that.
Yeah. Well, I think like, again, like resilience is such a powerful lesson, I think, from your journey, and you're such an embodiment of that. I mean, I'm curious though, like, was there ever like a moment throughout this period of time where you were like, you didn't want to keep going, where you just were like, let me just throw in the towel at this point and just, I don't want to do this anymore?
Oh my gosh. I don't think so. I don't think there was ever a moment where I was like, I will say this past January, I was in like the greatest pain of my entire life. I happened to have another brain bleed, and had to have another couple of brain surgeries back to back. And so this was like, whenever this, I don't know when this episode will air, but like 6 months ago, essentially. And I think that was like the closest to like a moment where I was just like, this hurts so much. And I am just like miserable. But even in those moments, I was like, just keep going, just keep swimming. Like little Dory from Finding Nemo. I just keep going, keep swimming. You will get through this. You got this. Like, even I it's like sometimes I think it's natural to feel like I don't got this. Like I don't have control over life. And for me, I was like, and so I don't know if I ever was like, I'm giving up and I'm throwing in the towel. It's just like, I feel like the situation is out of control. Yes. I feel like I don't have and I think so much of life is about relinquishing control and just surrendering to the experience. And so like, I feel like I have felt like out of control, which I don't think is a bad thing. Like a lot of times we need to feel that. It's not comfortable. I think it's like way outside our comfort zone. But I think for me, it was, I always like, and will always keep like whatever life throws my way, keep fighting, keep going, keep like, just, it's sometimes annoying how much, we say like, or I hear like, you're so strong, you're a warrior, you're this, and like, I sometimes wish I'm like, I understand it, and I wish I didn't have to be so strong all the time. But I will continue to just show up and be strong and do the things that I need to do. And it's not always easy. It's really, really freaking hard a lot of the time, but that doesn't change the fact that I will always just, I will always show up. I'll always be the strong, resilient Rachel. That's part of why I'm here.
Yeah, beautiful. I guess one thing I'm thinking about is like when you're kind of taking in who, we've gone through a lot of your life journey, I guess, at this point, and you have gone through and continue to go through so much and still kind of are this like very resilient person. Like if you were looking back at that, I would say that 21-year-old version of yourself, right, when your dad is about to pass, and like, what would you tell that version of Rachel?
Buckle up. But like I would be like, I would tell her so many things. I'd be like, go get your skin checked. Don't go to that dermatologist. No, I'm just kidding. Because I will say that, like, just like a quick sidebar, like I had gone to one dermatologist and like, got the very original mole check, because what we're talking about, the cancers, and it was all stemmed from skin cancer. It all stemmed from melanoma that like traveled into my lymph node, that traveled into my brain. But yeah, so really quick sidebar, I went to this one dermatologist back in like 2016, where I was 23, 24 at the time. And she told me, like, let's keep an eye on it. And like, let's like, maybe come back in 6 months. We'll take a look again. And like how badly I wish I would just be like, let's not keep an eye on it. Just get rid of it. Just take it off. Essentially now it's all a part of my journey. But, I mean, I would still tell like 21-year-old Rachel, like, life gets to be really, really good. Just keep believing it. Life gets to be really, really good. And yes, it gets to be this good. Like, just continue to saying that. And because at the end of the day, yes, I've gone through a lot and it sucks. And I wouldn't wish my problems upon anyone. Maybe some really terrible people, they can deal with that. But I would still I still truly believe that like my life is really, really beautiful and so fruitful in so many ways. And like the people in my life, that I have cultivated with intention, I would tell that little, but I would also just like tell her that like, and I think like I had a lot of fun in my 20s. I don't have it, but I would just say like keep listening to yourself and keep trusting, and like you are gonna have even more fun than you could possibly imagine. Like it's gonna be a really wild and crazy journey and crazy ride, but like always hold on to that magic. Keep hanging on to and like that, when I lost my dad and like have lost when my grandma passed away, like that was a really, really tough loss as well. Yeah, like it's like the hard things happen, and like life's gonna take a lot of different twists and turns, but it gets to be really, really beautiful. And just keep being intentional with your time, your energy. Don't give your energy to people who don't like value it. I think a lot of times we can give our energy away to people that don't necessarily appreciate it. And so I think for 21-year-old Rachel, wherever she is in the universe, she should just know that, hey, like this, you recognize your value, your worth. And I think we hear that a lot, know your worth. But I don't think she knew it at the time. I don't think she realized that she was like just a little magical little diamond. And I think that's something that we can always remind ourselves. So like, you are a diamond and a gem of a human. Really be intentional with like who gets to have access to you.
Right. Beautiful. Well, Rachel, I think we're kind of near the end of our episode, and so there's one question I always just ask my guests at the end of the show, which is like, what's a question that you would maybe have for the audience that might shift their perspective or have them think about something in a different way?
And so I think asking yourself and looking at where are you maybe leaching your energy? Where are you still like not living up to like the person that you really want to be? Like, what does that dream version of you look like? So I know that's a few questions, but like, hey, I was like, I'll keep it short because I know I've gone on a few different tangents, but like, hey, let's do a little life audit and human audit. Where are you leaking any or sort of energy, whether it's in a relationship, friendship, career? How can we fill some of those like leaks? Like I say energy leaks as far as like, where are you like pouring out of yourself where you shouldn't? Like, it's like I don't believe in like, we have like a finite cup, but a lot of times we might be pouring out of that cup and then running out empty. So where is that? Where are you leaking your energy, right? So I'll just say that. And then, what's the other thing you said?
Can't remember it does.
Oh, what does dream version of you look like? And like, how do you really, what are the steps you need to take to get to that dream version of you?
Beautiful. Rachel, this has been a fantastic pleasure getting to know you. Anywhere you want to send people before we sign off?
Sure. You can send them to my Instagram, Rachel.Gitlevich, LinkedIn, and or my website, rayofconsciousness.com.
Beautiful. Well, it was a pleasure getting to know you, and we'll have to do it again in the future.
Yes, looking forward to it. Thanks for having me on, Cameron.
My pleasure, Rachel. Ciao.